much. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? All good? Excellent. You all look slightly sort of tech weary, I get, at the moment, if I'm totally honest, which I can understand. There's been a lot of tech today, yeah. Wonder how many times you've heard the phrase omnichannel, or like, I don't know, bleeding edge, that's probably been said a lot. AI, just sort of thrown out. I'll try and keep those to a minimum, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm going to rattle through some things now. Basically, this short presentation is kind of like an abridged version of what I've been doing a lot recently, a much longer version of this, which is about how so many different omnichannel, look out for that word, so many different omnichannel touch points, either triggered by new technology or new technologies in themselves, are emerging. I think we're all really familiar with that. But what I want to talk about briefly is how important it is not just that they exist or that a retailer has those channels, but how we're connecting them. Because what we're noticing at Insider Trends is lots of different retailers are doing incredible things in terms of piecing together the puzzle of linking up these different channels in interesting ways through technology. But as far as we can see, no technologies have kind of solved the whole thing. They aren't linking up all of the channels. But there's some great examples of them kind of solving different parts of that puzzle. I'll take you through some examples of some of the retailers doing that, but no one's solving it completely. So towards the end of the talk, I'll mention something I'd like to invite you to join, which is something that Insider Trends are managing and a kind of group that we're bringing together to try and solve that particular problem and provide an out-of-the-box solution for retailers that allows them to link together all their different channels. So just quickly, 20 years ago, all we had in retail was the physical space. 10 years ago, selling through websites took off, e-commerce. And then around about, 5 years ago, people started buying things through apps. Very broadly, this is a potted history of retail. And then through technology, everything is changing. So now people can buy through social media, we all know about that. People can also buy or find out more simply through packaging. So through image recognition, people having Samsung Bixby on their phone, people can scan stuff and then buy it, find more information. So through technology, all kinds of new touch points are opening up. This is just a selection. There'll be many more in the future, of course. There are many more now that are mentioned here, but we have chatbots, augmented reality, virtual reality, connected cars in the States are taking off in quite a big way. So that's what I'm talking about broadly. But what is really, really important that I've displayed through this lovely spider web here is that all of these channels are connected and connected in a meaningful way. So I'm not just talking about being able to find out about a business through one channel and then buy through another, or maybe order through one channel and pick up through another. Those things are great. But what I'm talking about in the future is a much deeper connection of these channels so that data is shared across all of the channels in order to play to the strengths of each and every channel. That's where we see the future of retail and potentially the future of the most successful omni-channel retailers. I'm going to run through some examples of businesses that are helping to piece together little chunks of that diagram that I've just shown you. So firstly, Perch Interactive, I'm sure some of you have heard of them. So an agency doing really incredible things in terms of bringing online information into the physical space. So what Perch do in this example is they're bringing online reviews into the physical space, but they're doing it in a really human way. So through digital display boards like this, what they do is they trigger information when you pick a product up, rather than pressing a touch screen. I'm sure we've all been to loads of shops on Oxford Street where there's 100 touch screens in there and none of us know why they're there, how to use them. Clearly someone there has just gone, we need digital, and just thrown a load of screens in there. Perch are actually doing it in a human way. So you lift up a product, they're aware that people want to touch things, they don't want to touch screens necessarily, they want to touch products. When you lift a product, a recommendation comes up. We know that's meaningful because we know from various data sources that recommendations at the time of purchase can often improve conversion. According to Perch themselves, it can improve it by around 2.5 to 3 times on each and every sale. So that's one way that Perch are tackling it. So they're bringing the online into the offline. And here, a Custom Apparel, an independent tailor in New York, what they're doing is using the physical space to improve e-commerce, to improve online selling. So they have this amazing thing. In the back of this store here, they have a digital body scanner. They built it themselves very cheaply. They're only a small company. And within a couple of minutes, this creates a scan of a person's body that is essentially about as accurate as a tailor could do in like an hour, hour and a half, according to them. That's the kind of detail. So something like 20,000 data points are created through this scanner. Then once they have that information, the customer is given a code that they can then use online, so through their mobile phones or if they log on the laptop or wherever, and then that information is stored, and provided they don't change shape, every time they go and use that code, they've got exactly the right size. All they need to think is about ordering different sizes, different colors. They never need to go to their tailor again. So a really neat way of bringing, of using physical space in a different way in light of some of the challenges retailers are facing. Another example here, which is SpruceBot. I urge you to look up SpruceBot if you're not familiar with them already. They're doing some incredible things. So SpruceBot, essentially here I'm talking about them because they use online interactions through chatbots, social media, whatever, that they have with customers, and then they use that to improve in-store interactions. SpruceBot have recently signed deals with some major retailers in America, so this is going to go big. I'm just going to play a little video in the background that's important, I think, to display why it's doing really well. It's all about being human, this technology. So this customer comes in the store here, and slightly terrifyingly, I'd probably be a bit scared of that, the guy knows all about him already, goes and shakes his hand, and has all kinds of information that's useful as the customer enters. The point about SpruceBot really is that the technology is invisible in this scenario. It's kind of like a posh CRM, really. It just captures all of this information and then reuses it to help store advisors. But it's a cool example, worth looking up. And again, it's another piece of that puzzle that SpruceBot, in this case, have started to solve. So invisible technology, but also, in a similar way, visible technology can actually do incredible things as well. So the company, there's a business called Sight, which you may or may not have heard of, but also H&M, are currently trialing smart mirrors, or magic mirrors, in stores. Sight do lots of other stuff, but basically Sight are a business who help e-commerce through visual recognition technology. So to put it simply, a kind of a smart camera button, you could be in a H&M or whatever retailer's outfit, you take a picture of yourself, and then it will recommend similar accessories and items based on what you're wearing and how you look. And they've used that technology for smart mirrors for brands. You go up to the mirror and it can basically give you style recommendations in the dressing room. H&M have taken that one step further at their flagship in New York, and they've added a voice-activated element. So as well as being able to take a picture of you, you can actually tell the mirror to give you a selfie, or you can ask for specific recommendations, or you can tell it if you didn't like the recommendations it gave you. This technology hasn't been perfected by any stretch of the imagination, but as with many of these examples, it's about the concept, and I think this has really interesting implications for technology and retail. And Sight, in particular, a really amazing business, doing really well. A different element here, and this isn't something that's being used in retail yet, but I think is really worth mentioning. So Listen Up was a small project launched by We Are Social, the well-known social media agency. At the last general election, We Are Social basically launched these display advertising boards at bus shelters. They just had a few. And the idea was very simple. Someone would go up to the board and they could ask a question that they wanted politicians to hear. And basically that question would then be put out on social media, attracting the attention of politicians who'd respond on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and then that response would be posted onto this board. It's very much a conceptual thing. I mean, let's face it, in reality, did that have a lot of influence, or did it go really big? Probably not, but it was a trial and it was an experimentation. But what I like is that it kind of has, again, implications for retail and other businesses. I think that digital advertising could be changed and influenced very positively by voice-activated technology in the future, and it could easily be linked with e-commerce functions in those situations where someone is kind of at a bus shelter or in a location where they're not doing very much. So again, that's kind of almost about the public space being able to connect with e-commerce. So the store is being bypassed completely. Here, I mentioned this because Proximity Insight are using essentially data gained. It could be in-store or online, and they're using that to fuel marketing on this occasion. So they collect information when a customer comes in, assuming they have their app. They collect information of every store visit, the things they've bought, the kind of preferences they've shown, even stuff they've returned or stuff they've tried on. They also can use their activity online, assuming they're logged in on their website when they're looking, or through social media. They collect all of that information, and they use it to generate personalized email templates. And the idea is that when a customer leaves the store and a store assistant has a quiet moment, that customer assistant can fire out these great personalized emails. So it's kind of a really useful way of using up their spare time, but also creates better, or theoretically better marketing to go to those customers. According to their own stats, for the brands they've worked with, it's improved the conversion through their marketing by 20 to 25%, working with lots of big brands. And here's one of my favorite examples. I'm sure lots of you are familiar with Vitamojo. They're a really amazing kind of healthy fast food outlet. There's only a couple in London at the moment, but really they're all about the technology they use. So what they do is they allow you to completely personalize the food that you order. Now you can do that manually, and you can literally change, as you probably saw on one of the previous slides, you can change the amount of ingredients you want in each recipe that you choose. But you can also adjust things nutritionally, or according to your fitness goals, according to your allergies, dietary requirements, whatever. But they're now going one step further and basically linking wearable technology to those preferences. So you can be wearing your Fitbit. They've even linked up with DNA Fit, so theoretically they could link up with your DNA and make food recommendations based on that. There are already customers doing that, remarkably. So it's really, really interesting. And Vitamojo are actually starting to sell the technology to other businesses, and that's really where the growth for them is going to come from. But this is really about how wearable technology, so even the stuff that we wear, can be used to gather data to make recommendations in-store or online. And then this is almost about how now stuff can move into the realm of the products themselves. So Code de Couture by Ivory Revel. Ivory Revel are owned by H&M, and this particular concept, Code de Couture, is basically called the data dress. And they track a customer for a week, they track everything they do, and based on that, they've linked up with Google as well to create an algorithm that uses that information to create a customized dress. It's pretty wacky, but the technology behind it is really, really interesting.
Imagine a technology that is able to create custom-made designs for everyone. You install an app on your phone and select why you need the dress. The technology is able to learn from your activities. It understands what you love to do and where you love to go. It gets to know you a bit better. It translates all of this into a dress with a unique personal story to it.
I think they could come up with a better name than the data dress. I'm not sure that's going to catch on, but it's a cool idea. And again, conceptually, it's interesting because it's data driving the product itself. And in this case, it is the product itself that drives the data. So Tommy Hilfiger's one of their latest innovations, I'm sure we all know about all the interesting things they're doing, Explore, where basically they put Bluetooth chips into items of clothing, and then customers, provided they've downloaded their app, wherever they go, that piece of clothing is tracked, and they get rewards for the more they wear the clothing, or they get recommendations for other clothing. They get rewards if they go into a Tommy Hilfiger store wearing that particular item. I can't help but think that there's probably some real kind of Tommy Hilfiger obsessives who end up just stinking because they wear their clothes like every day, desperate for those rewards. But again, conceptually, it's really, really interesting because it shows the product themselves can actually drive the data. It bypasses all this other stuff. As technology gets better and better, exponentially better, and indeed exponentially cheaper, then this stuff can kind of has much more potential to grow. So another example I implore you to look into in more detail. And finally, I'll round off with this example because it's probably the closest concept I could find to almost putting together that whole puzzle I showed you at the beginning. So DigiMe, for those of you that don't know, broadly their aim is to be able to pull all of our data together individually, to have it in one safe and secure place that we can control, and then we allow whichever brands we choose to access which types of data. And so those companies approach DigiMe, they're vetted, and we get the opportunity as owners of that data in one place to choose how they access that. I think the principle is really, really good. As ever, the execution of it and the reality of it is going to be very different. It's going to be an incredibly hard project for Digime to pull off, but it's a really interesting idea conceptually. Big implications for retail technology, I think, because it's closer to what I was talking about at the beginning. So another one that's worth a look. So just to round off, so I think I'm almost at my contractually obliged finish time. So what next? Just going back to the beginning, my point really through a lot of those examples is exactly as I said at the start. I think it's all about using data and information through as many of these different kind of channels and pieces of technology in a retailer's ecosystem or any business's ecosystem. And it's about sharing it in every conceivable way and playing to the strengths of each channel. I love the example of a custom apparel at the beginning, so I think it's the simplest and strongest way of doing that. They've realized they're not going to compete with their rivals simply by selling suits with a traditional tailor measuring you up. They're not going to do that. So what can we do with the physical space to make customers want to buy online more than with our competitors? They've absolutely nailed that. So there's loads of great examples that I've shown you of people tackling different parts of the puzzle, but no one is solving the entire thing, which is why we're currently running an event, and the idea behind it is that we want to bring together venture capitalists, tech innovators, retail startups, more established retailers, and anyone really interested in any of the stuff I've been talking about, bring them together and start to think about how we could put together a kind of out-of-the-box solution for a newer retailer, or even an established retailer, could go to and say, I want to connect these channels. What is there that's available now for me to be able to do that? That doesn't exist at the moment. And of course, inevitably, all of these different parts, all of these different elements that are being solved, they don't work together, they don't integrate. They're all kind of conflicting, which is inevitable. And we're interested in any way that we can start to open that up a bit more, because we think, especially for newer businesses, that could really, really help them to succeed in what is an incredibly challenging marketplace. So if you're interested in any of that, equally I will not be offended if you're not. There's my email, jack@insider-trends.co. I'll hover around for a couple of minutes, so grab a business card from me if you're interested in that, or equally, if you're interested in a retail safari presentation or anything else we do, come and talk to me for the same reason. Thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, just give me a shout.
Well, Jack, thank you very much. And we actually do have a few minutes before your contractually obliged time is over.
I think my watch is wrong, I'm sorry.
So we do have a few minutes for questions.
Good.
I think everyone's Slido fingers might be tired after 2 days of Slido, so I can be a human roving mic. Does anyone want to ask Jack a question from the floor?
Let's do it the old-fashioned way, yeah.
All right, Jack, I'll ask you the first question. So we actually had a fascinating conversation about retail safaris before you got on.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could talk a bit more about that and maybe could you maybe spotlight kind of how a retail safari find has maybe found its way into the shops?
I'm just going to sell it like crazy. So we were one of the first businesses actually to do retail safaris. There's a few that do it now. But essentially what we do is we take retailers out into the field. That's the idea. We take them to the heart of where we think the best retail innovation is going on. That could be the tiniest cool retailer in the centre of London, the outskirts of London. We also do them, as mentioned here, in New York, Paris, Seoul. We also do them in Berlin. The idea is that we take big businesses and try and inspire them whatever their goals are. And we find that actually going out and seeing those innovations happen in real life, meeting whether it's the owners of these businesses or the store managers, interacting with them, setting up those private meetings, can be much more inspiring than simply presenting them, reporting on them, providing a consultancy service. And also, typically, they're a lot more affordable than the kind of consultancy that a lot of trend spotting agencies will offer larger retailers. So it's a great way. It's also a really fun thing. There's nothing more fun than kind of having a lovely day walking around London, seeing some cool stuff. We'll set up nice lunches and coffees and whatever else. So in a nutshell, that's it. Yeah. Thanks, Carl.
Well, Jack, thank you very much. What a fascinating session. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.